Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very strange This Week in Racing, coming to you live from our Airbnb in the Tampa Bay area. Obviously, this is not the way I don't think anybody expected this to go. So this is a very unexpected show. It's very different than a lot of the ways we've been doing things. You may notice me next to me. I've got a friend of mine. This is Kyle Cuthbertson. You may know him because he's run my go-karts in the past, and he's also been an integral part of the behind-the-scenes goings-on here on the channel. I've actually, thanks to the generous contributions from Patreon, have been able to bring him on as a part-time employee, able to help me film things, essentially double my ability to output work. So he can go film something while I'm going to talk to somebody or going to observe something else. It's really aided me quite a bit. And one of the things I was talking about yesterday was the need to pay things forward. YouTube is going to be incredibly important over the next couple of months with racing essentially being canceled, real-life racing. And so one of the other things that kind of I've been able to help benefit Kyle, it's kind of a two-way street. Not only am I paying him, but he's also working on getting his own YouTube channel monetized, which is based on racing. Now, Kyle is at 798 subscribers or something like that. He needs about something like that. He needs about 200 to go. So one of the things I'm going to ask you guys to do, I've got a link down in this description, is subscribe to his channel, Racing Nation TV. Again, there's going to be a need for content, and he is going to provide that content. Now, I do want to give a quick update on the channel itself before we kind of launch into talking about the current situation in the world. So the St. Pete coverage, obviously, disappointingly, is not going to happen. You may have noticed that yesterday, Dryden Reinbold Racing posted a photo of me interviewing Sage Karam. Unfortunately, that video is not going to be able to come out because we had an audio glitch where the audio didn't record.
It wasn't my fault.
It was his fault. But anyway, it's not a big deal. Obviously, things happen, but that just kind of contributed partly to my mood yesterday. And that is something I do want to talk about because I don't want to mislead anybody. I think, obviously, a lot of us were disappointed yesterday. And one of the things in my channel that's always been very important to me has been being real with you guys. So if I'm feeling, upset about things, you're going to know about it. So, amazing amount of support yesterday. So many people, and I couldn't believe there were so many nice comments. A ton of new Patreon supporters. People like Oliver Askew, who, if you don't know, is the Indy Lights champion and a driver for Aero McLaren SP in the IndyCar series. Just kind of backed me and this channel, and it really meant a lot to me. So I'm very motivated over these next 2 months to hopefully help your life be a little bit more normal. We're going to try to talk about racing on my channel and his channel and many other YouTube channels. I mean, we're going to essentially be providing the racing entertainment that many people are going to be lacking over the next couple of days and weeks and months. But we definitely have to have a serious show today because there were some serious cancellations, and we're going to have to talk about the future of the sport and where things are going to go. So that's also partially the reason we have Kyle here, because just having one opinion in a situation like this is going to be very difficult. So let's talk about the cancellations themselves. So obviously, pretty much every sporting event in the entire world, and that particularly applies to racing, has been canceled. The major ones, I know there's a couple that may continue to go on depending on crowd size. Obviously, President Donald Trump today issued a national emergency. But one of the, I think, major talking points, Kyle, was the way that the major series handled this situation, NASCAR, Formula One, and IndyCar. Before we tackle the elephant in the room, the reason that we're here right now and not at the racetrack, let's talk about Formula One and NASCAR and kind of the contrast, and yet at the same time, some of the things that were so similar in the reactions between those two series. I mean, what were your observations just kind of about those two series? And then we'll kind of talk about the stuff that got canceled that we were going to go to.
I mean, it's really interesting because you get essentially 5 examples of how this has been handled. in motorsports at least. And for Formula One, I don't really know what to say.
What do you? I the problem with Formula One was that you had split. You had kind of the politics really playing into it. I think more so than you had in NASCAR and IndyCar, and especially like WEC or IMSA, which I guess we'll talk about later. But you had the team split.
Yeah.
Like you had half of the teams that wanted to race and half the teams that didn't. And
Obviously with Formula One, because it's like, from what I saw, you had the first press conference come out, and Lewis Hamilton, and Vettel, they don't know why they're there, right?
Mhm.
And there was all that controversy.
Lewis was particularly pointed in
yes.
his comments.
And then you get these reports, oh, the race is canceled. Oh no, it's not. There were two different stories, and you don't know.
Mhm.
And then you get the story of the McLaren employee who was infected.
Yeah,
And
confirmed case. And
yeah.
and there were Haas F1. There were like 3 Haas people who were tested and confirmed for the virus. It was just quicker. The McLaren guy got confirmed first, and McLaren just pulled straight out of the GP.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that was weird to me was that Haas was one of the teams that wanted to stay and race, which was a bit confusing to me. So I don't know. I think most people kind of think that Liberty Media did not handle that very well. I think that's not a very controversial opinion.
I think the thing about Formula One is since it's a totally different story, because it's an international series, and they were racing in Australia. That was a place that was more infected. There's manufacturers coming from Italy and so many different countries.
Well, there's teams that they're from Italy. I mean, AlphaTauri and Ferrari,
Yeah.
they're from Italy, and obviously Alfa Romeo, which is the Sauber team, obviously, but as well as Haas, they had a lot of personnel that are Italian, and then obviously Formula One, like you said, international.
Mm-hmm.
So you have China, which plays a huge role in Formula One. You have Italy, which plays a huge role in Formula One, and these places have a higher rate of the thing we can't talk about, or at least the thing we can't name. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that it didn't get canceled earlier is a bit surprising. I'm surprised they even got to Melbourne, because I guess I understand why some of the American series ended up this week, and I guess NASCAR is the thing we should talk about next, because I think a lot of people were very upset with how that was handled on the NASCAR side of things, because it really did look like they were going to run without spectators in Atlanta. And in fact, so much so that the truck teams were on the grid, ready to go, and they were told to pack up.
Because today, when I woke up, I immediately told you that the trucks were going to run tonight. So it was going to go, schedule as always, the regular schedule for the weekend. And then we woke up and we had that condensed schedule where Cup and Xfinity was going to run on Saturday, and then we were going to have the trucks tonight. That was announced, but literally almost an hour after that was announced, it was all canceled. So I remember I was seeing tweets from people who were on their way to the track, and they were literally tweeting. They were saying, hey, let me know if this is canceled or not. I mean, people didn't know. People were unloading. There was supposed to be qualifying in a race tonight that people thought was going to happen. There were still Xfinity teams and Cup teams showing up. I mean, it was when it really looked like it was going to happen, and then we got a call this morning that it wasn't going to happen.
Well, I mean, that really brings us to the elephant in the room, doesn't it?
We got to talk about IMSA and WEC.
Well, yeah, I think, there's a contrast there, isn't there?
Yeah.
So the elephant in the room is we are in this room because we were planning on doing an 11-day trip where we were going to cover the St. Petersburg Grand Prix for IndyCar. When we were going to head over to Sebring, Florida to cover WEC. World Endurance Championship, or WEC, as some of you guys pointed out in the comments yesterday, and the IMSA 12 hours. Feels like 24 hours. And so it really did look like the IndyCar race was going to happen.
Yeah.
So much so that this morning they were screening what they described as essential personnel only. I don't remember what the personal story we have, and some of those of you who have followed me on Twitter know kind of what's gone on, is that so I did not receive any kind of an email saying that I could not come to the racetrack today.
I did.
So yes, that's kind of the weird thing, is that so it seemed like they had a limit on how many
each outlet had to.
So it seemed like each outlet got one person in terms of obviously not NBC people. So I made the decision that we were better served just to watch on NBC Gold, and because as cool as it would be to be at the racetrack had it happened, it wasn't important enough. I mean, there was nothing I was going to be able to do with the interview restrictions that they'd put in place, as well as the fact that I'm not going to have a cameraman to help me kind of film everything. I decided not to go, and it turned out to be a good decision because they ended up canceling the race later on in the day. But that was before they ran a couple of Road to Indy sessions.
Yeah.
So there were cars actually on the track burning fuel and tires. And I guess the question is really, what was the logic here? What was the decision? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, one thing we do have to remember is the cancellations today from NASCAR and IndyCar, they were made before the national emergency.
See, here's the thing. They were made when everybody got wind that there was going to be a national emergency. So it's like, they were probably going to go forward with the races otherwise. And I said this yesterday because, there were people DMing me on Twitter saying, hey, I've got an IndyCar hard card, and they are not going to let me into the racetrack tomorrow. So it's like, if it's gotten to that point, why is the race happening? I guess I don't understand. Should the race have gone on? Should it not have gone on? I mean, what's your opinion?
Well, it's a tough call. I like that they tried. But yesterday we were heading to the track and we waited 5 hours till the announcement. The announcement was done. We were there around 12.
You're talking about from the mayor, right?
Yeah. From the mayor, and the media center was filled with people, and every business was going on as usual. The only thing that was done at that point yesterday morning was
there were no fans.
Yeah, they announced the no fans early in the morning,
Yeah.
and they told the vendors to go home. And then from the time that was announced to the 3 p.m., they announced the 3 p.m. announcement, and it was like a 5-6 hour wait for that announcement. And then when the race was, you waited for the announcement, and then after you figured out the race was going on, then it was another wait to see who they were going to let in, what the process was, how all that was going to go. So then you find out the race was going to go on. Then you're like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
What's the screening process?
Yeah.
So the thing I'm a little, I would say maybe annoyed with would be the right word.
Yeah.
I'm not annoyed with the decision. It's a
Well,
we can understand.
but you are annoyed
why.
with the decision.
We can understand. We can understand why events aren't taking place, right? But
the problem I see here is that when the travel ban came in, WEC canceled almost immediately.
yeah,
Sebring the next morning, the 12-hour, and why was IndyCar 2 days later?
yeah,
And so, I get it. It's a street circuit, and it's difficult to cancel that because you don't know if it's going to come back if you cancel it 1 year. But for the fans, the competitors, and for the media members, and for so many of the freelancers as well. That's been a big story.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people lost a lot of money here. So, what can you do? What can you do that's fair to everybody? And I think they missed the boat, not canceling when everybody else was canceling. And it's just really the whole thing. This whole thing is disappointing. And I guess what we really need to talk about now is kind of like where does racing go from here? So obviously one of the big news stories today was the fact that the Long Beach Grand Prix. In fact, that happened yesterday, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's been a long day, last couple of days. So the Long Beach Grand Prix was canceled, and they also canceled COTA and Barber today for IndyCar. I think NASCAR's also suspended.
They postponed Homestead.
So
I think there's like two different things I've heard that
Yeah,
it's run without. It's definitely run
so
without fans.
NASCAR. Let me put it this way. I think NASCAR is going to cancel their events until further notice. I think I would be very surprised if NASCAR continues.
Let me just add something to NASCAR. We're talking about the future. Is Jimmie Johnson's final season? Because I know something in Supercross. Chad Reed's probably going to do another season.
Yeah.
If Jimmie Johnson misses a huge portion of his final season, what does that do?
Well, I don't know, and that's something that we need to talk about. And Formula One has said that they're not coming back until Baku in June. So it's looking like, and many of the IndyCar people put out today in their weird group stories where they were all saying, "We think the decision is good." Those videos, they were all saying that, look, we're coming back in May.
Right.
So the question is where. I guess we'll specifically talk about IndyCar because I'm sure Formula One and NASCAR are going to be done to death by other people. IndyCar, and I've been saying this, and people are like, "Oh, you're being a Debbie Downer," but it's true. Is that IndyCar? This is a big potential problem for sponsors, for tracks, for sponsors, all those things.
Yeah.
So my worry is when you start canceling this many events, what is that going to do? And of course, then you also have the economy problem. Now I get it; it's the same for everybody. You have every sport is shut down. My problem is that when the economy starts to slow down, because it already has slowed down, what happens to sponsors? What happens to teams? I mean, what happens to funding? I mean, this year probably not going to be too badly affected. Next year, 2 years, 3 years, 40 years from now, and you look at historic tracks like Long Beach. Now we've heard all sorts of conflicting reports here. Apparently Long Beach wants to run it in September. Mark Miles came out and said, "No, we're not doing Long Beach this year." It's like IndyCar said Long Beach is canceled, and Long Beach said no, Long Beach is not canceled. So there's some weird things going on. I mean, what can be done? I mean, what are we looking at here? What do you think for the next 12 months?
I mean, like you said, in the next year, 2 years, I mean, that's really when I think it could really impact sponsorship. But I mean, seeing it still has its ramifications if the month of May on goes as planned. If that goes as scheduled, it's still going to have its ramifications. I mean, your first race, maybe the GP, if that even happens.
Yeah. Then that's the first race with the aero screen.
Right.
So it's kind of like the NASCAR package thing where you don't have a ton of testing, you don't have a ton of miles, and you're going to go into a race and you're going to go, I hope this works. And then you do it right before your biggest race. So I don't envy. I mean, the thing is, and I don't say this from a traditional standpoint, but I said this to you in the car when we were driving back from St. Petersburg. I'm like, if the Indy GP gets canceled, maybe you just run 2 weeks of practice for the 500, and you just make sure that anything, you test as many things as you possibly can. You have like a semi-traditional month of May. I mean, the problem with the travel ban, though, too, is you've got so many international stars. I mean, and some of the big money guys, Scott McLaughlin for the Indy GP, New Zealand, Fernando Alonso. Well, see, here's the thing. Scott McLaughlin is in that Asia-Pacific region where it's really hitting hard. Fernando Alonso's in Spain, which, of course, is Europe, which, of course, is also where it's hitting hard. So... and what's to say it doesn't hit hard here in a month? So that's the thing, and I guess that's part of the containment. Obviously, that's part of the reason why, because they don't want this to be like Europe or the Asia Pacific region. It's concern. I mean, there's a lot to be concerned about, and I just don't know where it's going to go. I mean, well, let's look at some positives. How about this? So we know the 12 Hours of Sebring is happening in November.
Right.
That means the IMSA season ends with what? Petit Le Mans. I think Sebring, rather than Super Sebring, because the WEC race has been canceled. That's not
the WEC race. That's also super sad because keep in mind that's probably not going to happen after the WEC is probably not coming back to Sebring.
They may not. That's the thing that would.
And the big thing I've heard is WEC. This was probably the last Super Sebring WEC race, and that this is. It's just super sad. He doesn't even want to think about that.
It's just sad. I mean, so many of these things. I mean, it's so I don't want to be a doomer here, but it's like things were going so well in so many respects. I mean, we were talking about 37 cars for the Indy 500. We were talking about the economy going up. We were talking about hypercar DPI convergence. We were talking about all these things. I mean, NASCAR fixed their short track package. There's so many things that were positive. The 2021 Formula One cars. It's like so many things we were looking forward to, and now all those things are in question. I mean, this does almost feel like 2007 again.
You just made all of us so sad.
I'm sorry. I know, but remember 2007? How awesome! If you look at that as a racing year, there were 60 cars showing up for NASCAR races.
Right.
You had ALMS, which was just like absolutely banging. IndyCar and Champ Car merged at the end of that year, so that was a positive step forward for the sport. There were so many things to look forward to at that point, and then a lot of things got stymied right around that point, and a lot of the growth that racing had was kind of lost. It's weird, man. I think racing is going to go through a lot of changes in the next couple of years, and I don't know if they're going to be good.
It's a strange time, but like I said, we are gonna look back at this in a couple of years and be like, man.
Well, we were there.
We were in history, yeah.
We were. I mean,
we have. Yeah.
We got the look at this.
Even has the
this
date
is
on it.
this is the damn collector's
Yeah,
item here.
yeah,
They
it
even
is.
got it in the right color. So I don't know, man. It's a strange time, but again, my commitment to you guys, his commitment. I hope you've subscribed to him at this point. Our commitment as YouTubers is going to be to carry the flame. Really, it's going to be us and the sim racers.
I mean, no matter what it is, sim racing, historical content. I mean, like, there's
Yep.
still stuff to do. It's not the end of the world. We'll make it through this.
Yep.
We will make it through this.
Yep.
But I mean, if you look at it, honestly, if everything goes, you got to look at the bright sides. If everything goes to plan, and the month of May happens without any more postponement, then look at it.
Knock on wood.
Then look at it. Yeah, knock on the wood.
Yeah, there you go.
Then look at it. We're going into a month of May where an aero screen hasn't been tested. If Scott McLaughlin can come in, Scott McLaughlin will be in the first IndyCar race of the season.
Yeah. Hey, he's running
Yeah.
for the championship now.
See, I mean, there's just, we're gonna have a bit of time in April, we're gonna have more.
And March.
We're gonna have more
And
off-season
March.
time. I keep forgetting it's the beginning of March.
Yeah.
But we're halfway done. But we're you got to think of the positives. If we can get through this, we do have a lot to look forward to in May.
Yeah.
Think about it that
Yeah.
way.
I mean, if there wasn't a lot of hype for the Indy 500, it being
boy.
one of the first races back from a literal motorsport hiatus
Oh,
and a sport hiatus. I mean, consider this. I mean, we were. I mean, and it was very selfish, I think, but a lot of us were going, "Hey, IndyCar is going to be the only thing on TV."
Yeah.
Guess what? It looks like the Indy 500 is going to be the first major sporting event after the. I almost said it. After the crisis. After the crisis, the Bud Light crisis, that could be a really, the Indy 500 could turn into a nation and world healing event. Let's be that positive. On that positive note.
David Land speaking positively, everyone. You've seen it here.
I'm trying to. I'm trying. It's hard, but I'm gonna try because again, I think it's important for us to keep this going. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to Racing Nation TV, and we will see you in the next video.